Okay. Welcome, everybody. Thank you all for coming. My name is Carolyn Sugiyama-Klassen. I'm the editor of the Southern Arizona Japanese Cultural Coalition website. Thank you all for coming. What our coalition is that we are a group of Japanese organizations and individuals, and we organized 5 years ago to come together and then to spread our culture of Japanese culture to the greater Southern Arizona community. Some of us are on the council. There we have 14 people on our council. Min is one of the council members, and so am I. And the other council members, could you please rise? I think Christo is here, and we have our director here and our secretary, Kate. Thank you very much. Oh, and Evelyn. Evelyn's on our council too. Okay. Our website, I should step out of the way. Our website is southernazjapan.org, and Min is pointing it out. So if you have any interest in Japanese culture besides this internment camp talk tonight, please go to the website. We have a very extensive calendar, and I do all the content on the website. I left my business cards in the back too, so you can take that with you. Okay, so let me introduce Min. Min has recently written an article about the camps. I have a copy of the article in the back there that is being read. We will post the article on our website sometime this week. Okay, it'll be in PDF. Yeah, okay. Also, we have James Tokishi in the back there. He's videotaping this because we got several requests from people who couldn't attend, and they want us to post it on our Facebook page. So we'll be doing that as soon as James has the tape ready. Thanks, James. Okay, so Min is a Nisei, and he'll explain what that means, from Honolulu, Hawaii. He was 6 years at the University of Arizona, East Asian Studies Department. So he will be giving the talk until 7:30 tonight. Then he'll take questions. Okay, we have to be out of the room by 7:45 because the library closes at 8. Okay, thank you, everybody.
Thank you for attending. Okay, a little bit of a glitch there. Before I start, I need to define some terms because for some of you are very knowledgeable about this topic, but for others, this is the first time you're hearing anything about the internment camp. And so I'll be using some words, and it has to be defined. The first word up there is Issei. Issei is the first generation. These were immigrants that came from Japan, and they're not citizens because the immigration law at that time, they were not eligible, so they're aliens. Then we have the Nisei. Nisei is second generation. They're children of the Issei. So they're American citizens because they're born in the United States. The third term there, Sansei, is third generation. They're the children of Nisei, so they're also, of course, American citizens. Then we have Kibe. Kibe are Nisei, second generation. They went to Japan. Their parents sent them to Japan for education. This was the practice of a lot of families. They wanted the children, if possible, to go to Japan to get the education so that the Japanese tradition would be continued in the family. Very important. So it was a practice to send the kids to Japan. There are two types of kibe. Those that went back to Japan in the 1920s, and then they came back to the United States. Because before the war broke out in 1941, there was enough time for them to get again Americanized. So they were not as much pro-Japanese. The second group of kibes went to Japan in the 1930s. That was a time when militarism was on the rise, and the Japanese educational system was very nationalistic. Those kibes, when they came back to the United States, were very pro-Japan. So you have to keep in mind when we talk about kibes, okay? The last term there, Nikkei. Nikkei is people of Japanese ancestry. There's a chair right here. Kenji.
I'm going to that.
Okay, I know you like to make dramatic entrances. It's my buddy, Huawei.
Yeah. Kenji, I'll leave your stuff over here.
Okay. Okay, Nikkei, people of Japanese ancestry. And so, I'm going to use the term Japanese Americans. So the Nikkei, okay? Really, when you talk about Nikkei, it includes everybody, Issei, Nisei, Sasei, and so on. So, but when I use the term Japanese American, it also includes the first generation, okay, although they weren't citizens, just so that you won't get confused. There's another term here that I need to clarify. I use as my title, internment camp. Most Japanese Americans would prefer concentration camp because there were concentration camps. They were surrounded by barbed wire, had guard towers, armed with weapons. So there were concentration camps. However, the term sometimes in some people's mind get equated with Nazi death camps. But the internment camps here that were administered humanely. They didn't use torture or any kind of physical abuse like that. So I still prefer internment camp, although in my papers I have used concentration camp as such. There are other terms that are used, like incarceration, which is more legalistic term, incarceration. Sometimes some people use prison. That they should not use because none of these people committed crimes. They were not prisoners, okay? And so just keep in mind the terminology. What is the government use? They use relocation camp. That is euphemism, okay? It sounded better, right? Softer image. You relocated them, called evacuees, for their benefit, so they would not be harassed, they would not be attacked by vigilantes. So we're doing these Japanese Americans a favor by removing them from the West Coast to the interior, and thereby, it's to their benefit. So they use this softer image of relocation centers. So that's the official government title for the camps, just so that you understand. Let me give you some background. Now, December 7th, the aftermath of that, and the war was declared against Japan, racial tension erupted on the West Coast. You had a big population of Japanese Americans. In fact, of the total Japanese population in the United States, on the continental United States at that time, was about 127,000. 88.5% of them were on the West Coast. You know, ethnic groups tend to cluster, so they're on the West Coast. So only 11.5 were scattered throughout the Midwest and on the Eastern Coast. So racial tension really was bad, especially in California. So, and you already had a long history of anti-Japanese sentiments on the West Coast. So you have this racial attitude existing. Now, with the war, you had another element of war hysteria. A lot of the people, were afraid that the Japanese, the local people would engage in espionage, sabotage, and the Japanese were, the rumor spread that they were even going to invade, attack the West Coast. All of this was hyped up by the media. So hysteria just, enveloped the West Coast. And so the local whites decided, okay, we need to get all the Japanese Americans out of this area. Political leadership also failed. Instead of protecting the constitutional rights of the Japanese Americans, they abetted, they encouraged the removal of the Japanese Americans from the West Coast. So, on February 19, 1942, President Roosevelt signed Executive Order 1966, which set in motion the forceful removal of the Japanese Americans from the West Coast. Now, what you have in this map, those on the back may not be able to see it, but half of the state of Washington, Oregon, half of California, and half of the bottom half of Arizona were declared exclusion zone, military zone 1. 2 months later, all of California was declared to be military zone 2, another exclusion. So all of Japanese Americans in these exclusion zones were forced out, okay? And so you're talking about 113,000 of these people were moved out. But you have to realize that, okay, what about the 14,400 that were not living on the West Coast? Well, they didn't have to move. If they were in Chicago, they didn't have to move into place. However, if the family member had some connection with Japan, they were on the FBI list. So people that were probably in the Japanese community, like principal of Japanese language school, the teachers in those schools, editors and journalists of Japanese language newspaper, Buddhist Shinto priests, businessmen with ties in Japan, and recently arrived Kibes. They were all in the FBI, potentially subversive list. So right after Pearl Harbor, the next day, they were starting to, FBI rounded up these people. And where did they send them? They sent them to federal detention facilities and army facilities. You can't really see it, but I'll just point out, for example, Fort, let's see, you had one up here in Fort Missoula, and then in Texas you had Leavenworth right here. That's a facility, right? Yeah, facility. Yeah. So they sent up to these places. How many? Well, in Hawaii, they sent about 1,000 scattered throughout the detention. On mainland U.S., about 2,000. Usually you're talking about the head of the household, not the whole family. In some cases there were some families that were moved out, but usually it was the head of the household that was picked up by the FBI and sent to these detention places. And the ones in Hawaii, they stayed there, and then later on, these were very temporary, so they were then sent to other places. But the bulk of this, the U.S. Army was given the responsibility of moving the people out of their homes. Now, this is the first time where the Japanese population is traumatized. They were forcibly removed from their homes, and they were given a week's notice. In some cases, 48 hours to move out. So, many of them lost their possessions. I mean, they tried to, if they have friends, they could maybe have it stored, or they had to have fire sales, in which case they got about a small fraction of their worth. But in most families, they lost all their possessions. So it was a very traumatic situation. So, and they went to assembly centers. There were 16 assembly centers. On the map, they're shown by these, you had a square, 14 of them in California, and one in Washington and one in Oregon. The assembly centers.
Is that the isolation center?
No. These were temporary squatters until the relocation centers were built. So temporarily they were sent here. You have here in this slide that you have the train that came, and this is actually Santa Anita racetrack, bringing the Japanese Americans. And on one side, you see them all lined up with their luggage. On the other side, you have the soldiers in combat gear. You notice combat gear. Santa Anita. Well, you're not having horse races at that time. Why did they use Santa Anita? Well, it had, of course, infrastructure buildings already, but they had big parking lots. And you need the parking lots because you have to build barracks. Here they are. See all these barracks? Santa Anita Assembly Center was the largest of all the assembly centers. It housed 18,700 people. 18,700. The barracks that were built was not enough. Not enough. 8,500 were put into the horse stable. Yeah, with the horses. Now, they did try to clean it up, okay? But horse urine is hard to eliminate. You really don't get rid of it. So they had to put these people in there, Yeah, it was terrible. They had like 6 mess halls, not enough, long lines, communal lavatories, So this was the second shock. Besides forcible removal from their home, the assembly center was a shock. Crowded condition, no privacy at all. This is the Salinas Assembly Center. This is not a racetrack. This is a fairground. You can see here this stockyard right here. And the barracks are all built in a parking lot here. And here, if you can see it, it's dark, but there's a truck, and here's the luggage being unloaded.
Salinas, California?
Salinas, California. For Salinas Assembly, which relocation camp you went to was determined by which assembly center you were at. Salinas, those people went to Boston. If you were at Santa Anita racetrack, you went to Boston. If you were in these interior, let me go back. These interior assembly centers, you went to Gila River. Okay. So it depends on which assembly center you're at. In this picture, you see the inmates are now being transported to the relocation center. Some are on the train. This is the train right here. They're waving to their friends. They're on the train already. You can see the barbed wire fence here. These people will be on the next train going to Boston. The average stay in the assembly center was about 100 days. So basically, you're talking about 3 months they spent at the assembly center. And a lot of them were glad to get out, but they were in for the third traumatic experience. This is the layout of Boston. Boston was the largest relocation center of the 10. It had a population of 18,000. Because it was so huge, it was split into 3 units, 3 camps. Boston 1, Boston 2, and Boston 3. This is a layout of Boston 2. The key feature in the, understand the layout is to see how it was arranged, very symmetrical. You had what is called block. This is a block where you have a triangle unit. And here is the diagram is a block. I don't know whether you can see it, but let me explain what a block consists of. You had on one side 7 barracks, on the other side 7 barracks, and in the middle you have 4 buildings. The top building was a communal lavatory and shower. The second building was, well, one for male and second for female. And then the third one was laundry room, and the 4th building was a storage. Those 7 barracks on each side, barracks, this is military barracks. How many veterans here? Okay, you stayed in the barracks? Right, okay. KJ, you were in a barrack?
Yep.
Yeah? Yeah, I was in a barrack too, right, at Fort Lewis, Tacoma, Washington, in Korea. These barracks were worse. I mean, the reason is that the lavatory and the shower was not attached. You had to go out, Usually our barracks, you had cots, one row and the other row, and at the head of each cot, you had the foot locker where you put all your, clothing and possessions, They didn't have foot locker. I mean, these barracks are devoid of furniture. All you had the army cot with 2 blanks on each cot. And naked light bulbs hanging from the ceiling. So, and they're 20 by 200 feet.
And no bathrooms inside?
No, you have to go outside to the communal ones. And the reason why it was so bad, the toilets were not partitioned. The shower room was just one big room with shower head, no partition. The women were thoroughly embarrassed. Many of them did their business late at night. Absolutely no privacy. So, so that's what we call a block. You would have 7 barracks on each side, and the big building on the bottom would be, on the left-hand side would be your mess hall. On the right-hand side, the big building would be your recreation hall. So now you have to understand, this is the basic unit, okay? Boston 2 here had 18 of these blocks. When you get to Boston 1, it's a bigger place. You had 36 of these blocks. Usually, that generation of Japanese Americans, left from the West Coast, when they kind of strangers, they met for the first time, the conversation would go like this. What location said, what concentration camp were you at? They assume you were in one of them, because most of them were. So you didn't ask, were you there? You just assume. which one? Well, you may answer, okay, I was at Boston 1, and I was in block 22, there were 36 blocks. So I was in block 22, barracks 3. You can count them. There's barracks 3 right here in this diagram, 1, 2, 3. And then they will say, I was in apartment 4. There is no apartment 4. The barracks is divided. You could have about 4 or 6 families, and there were no partition. They had to use bed sheets, okay, to partition it off. But it was kind of a joke that they had. I was in apartment 4, which means that if you take the barracks, it was split into 4 areas. You were in the 4th area. So that's how they communicated sometimes. Okay, this is a picture of Gila River under construction. You can see these are the communal for the women, men, and the communal laboratory for the women, and then this is the laundry room, and then this still building a storage area. That's repeated over here. And in between are these 7 barracks. And then you have the bigger bath hall and recreation hall. Completed one at Gila River. Again, you see the layout. You see, it's all symmetrical with the barracks here and the in between buildings for communal laboratories. This is the layout of Gila River. There were 2 camps, Canal Camp and Butte Camp. Canal Camp because there wasn't a canal going around. That's a canal. Butte because there was a mountain butte here. This is I-10, by the way, I-10 right here.
Wow.
If you want to visit today, you can't because it's a part of Indian reservation. You need permit. And then if you even get permit, they have to escort you, okay? You can't just walk in there. Boston, you can do it, not here, Gila River. It's near Sakadon, by the way. Good question. Yeah, good question. I don't know what they are. Yeah, right. This is, yeah. Yeah, this was drawn up by the National Park Service. They did archaeological work, so they were interested in locating buildings and so on. Yeah. Yeah.
That's on Indian land, right?
Yeah, it's an Indian land. That's why you can't. The total population was 13,400. Okay. If you took a census of Arizona at that time, January 9, 1943, the biggest city would be Phoenix with 65,000, okay, 400. Second would be Tucson with 38,400. Third would be Boston with 18,000. Fourth would be Gila River with 13,400. That's how big they were. A guard tower. You can see the 2 guards with rifles, by the way, if you can see them. One here and the other here. There's a barbed wire down here. This is arrival by bus to Boston. The real head was in Parker, and the train would come to Parker, and then there would be bus about 17 miles to the camp. And here they arrived, there were some already there, and they were being greeted. They were in for the 3rd shock, for 3rd traumatic experience. You can see the bus in the back. Bus in the back here.
Did they have any personal possessions with them?
Yeah, right. They were loaded onto the bus. Yeah, no. very little of what they can carry, basically. But they were in a shock because, for one thing, it was very dusty. This is desert, okay? And when the wind blew your dust off. The barracks were built with very raw lumber and with tar paper. The black one is tar paper. And what happened when the dust would go through the cracks between the wood, the timber. So, and off on the floor, there also be cracks, so the dust would come up. And then you have a fine film of dust all on the barracks. So dust was a big problem. Another, the heat. We are familiar, right? Tucsonian. We're talking about they arrive in their summer, so it's triple digit. Okay. No vegetation. You don't see any trees, no bush, nothing, and that's why the dust builds up. Okay. They had to make their own mattress. You stuff it with straws. And you can see like the one guy carrying the mattress to his barrack.
Was there rainy season? Rainy season over there?
Yeah, but it's like here. It's like Tucson.
It's in a Gila River. So
Yeah,
it
there's
must be
river,
flat.
right. For Gila, there's the Gila River, and then there's for Boston, there's Colorado River.
There must be
Yeah.
flat up that rainy season.
But it's still desert. Yeah. It's like our river, Wilita River. It's kind of a joke, isn't it? Here's the guy running. You have to, hold down because of dust. Okay, this is the interior. They had to partition off the family area with bed sheets. There were absolutely no furniture. They had to make their own. They used scrap lumber to make their own furniture. And whatever furniture they can scrounge up, they got. But you have absolutely no privacy. Japanese were good gardeners, landscaper. They were good at making ponds. And here you have one, a nice big pond. Even if you can see the picture, there's a bridge actually that they created over the pond. And this cut down on the heat and also the dust. They were very resilient. They made it as habitable as possible. And the administration really didn't help them.
Where did they get the lumber to make?
Scrap. When they built the barracks, there were all these scrap lumber. They picked them up. They're not supposed to, but at night they just go and get it. And then they were very good craftsmen, so they were able to make the furniture. Eleanor Roosevelt said she wanted to visit one of the relocation centers. So they took her to Gila River. The reason Gila River was the most attractive of all the relocation centers. It had red roof. The roofing material they used was red, so it looked nice, and it had double roof. I don't know whether you can see it in the picture, but it had double roof to cut down the heat. Right here, there's two roofs actually. Eleanor Roosevelt was very sympathetic, very sympathetic to the cause of Japanese Americans. The man standing next to her is Dylan Meyer. He was the head of the WRA, War Relocation Authority. They ran all the relocation camps, all of them. The first WRA director was Milton Eisenhower, the younger brother of Ike. He lasted only 3 months. He couldn't sleep at night. I mean, this job was too stressful. And he told Dylan, okay, you want to take this job? Are you able to sleep at night? And Dylan said, yeah, I think I can manage. And of course, Dylan did manage, and then he held on to the job. One big problem with the internment camp was boredom. What do you do? The WRA answer was employment. Find them some jobs. And one of the biggest job was in agriculture. And here you have a picture of at the Gila River, outside the camp. They had these big farms. Now, the Native Americans had, created a nice irrigation system, but the Japanese Americans vastly improved it. And this farming was so successful. They grew all the vegetables that met the needs of Gila River, Boston, and had extra food that they could serve all the other 8 internment camps. So it was a big production. 1,000 worked on the farms at the Gila River. Now, they were paid $8 for the whole month. Then they got a little more generous. They raised it to $12. If you're semi-skilled, and let's say you're a cook, they paid you $12 initially, and they got generous, and they increased it to 16. If you're a professional, like a doctor, they gave you the fabulous wage of 16 for the month. And they later increased it to 19. They were working long hours, by the way. And people ask, oh, what, how come they were so underpaid? Well, the reasoning was, you couldn't pay them more than what a private in the army was paid. Well, I think really they were exploiting cheap labor, really, but they don't want to say that. If you wanted to get away from the camp, you could have taken this temporary, agricultural work, or you could work for the WRA. Again, you got paid very little. In the office, the mess hall, in the warehouse, hospital, school, you could work there and you get a little bit paid. Or you could ask for a leave permit. You were vetted, you had to take a test showing your loyalty to the United States, and then you were given a permit to go out of the camp and work, find a job. You have to have a sponsor, a company sponsoring you, and so that you can go there. And then you don't have to return. If you're accepted by a college or a vocational school, you could go for your schooling. Or you could volunteer for the Army. And in January of 1944, draft was instituted. So if you got drafted, you also were able to leave the camp. But some young folks didn't want to leave. The reason is, well, if they left, they're separated from their parents. They're still in the camp. Parents couldn't leave, so, you're breaking up the family. But, several thousand of young people did leave on leave permit program. Private business was not allowed, but outside business could come in and contract. Now, this is a picture of a camouflage factory. They were making camouflage net for the army. Yeah. And actually, you can't see it too well, but all the women are wearing masks because it gets very dusty. This company didn't last too long, less than a year. And when the contract had ended with WRA, that was the end of that. So there was a camouflage factory in Boston and one in Gila River. There was also a tofu place. They made tofu, not for profit, but just for consumption. Tofu is, bean curd, made out of soybeans, a basic staple for the Japanese. So, there were some factories like that. Adobe, no school building was provided by the administration. So the Japanese Americans had to build their own school building, and they used Adobe. They had an Adobe factory at Boston, so they learned how to do it. Well, besides employment, how do you, bring up the morale of the people? How do you encourage them? How do you get them to enjoy life? One is through entertainment, and baseball was a big thing. This is a picture of Kenichi Zenemura. He's considered the father of Japanese American baseball. When Kenichi and his family were moved to Gila River, he was really distressed. I mean, he felt disillusioned. He didn't want to do anything. But then he said, you know what? I'm a baseball player. I'm going to build a baseball field. This is Zenimura Field. He and his two kids, sons, with the help of some friends, they built this field. And you will see dugouts at the backstop. Dugouts here, backstop at the diamond here. The outfield is made with desert trees. You can see the guard tower here, and here's those barracks again. For the barracks. Yeah, Zenimura helped build other baseball fields. So eventually, every camp had its own baseball field. They had a 32-team league, and actually Zenimura's team, he had two of them, All-Star and also Butte High School. They were good. They were really good, and they played, competed against outside semi-pro, high school, college teams, and even two teams from relocation center, Granada, and also from Hot Mountain in Wyoming, came to play against the Zenimura's team. University of Arizona refused to play there for racial issues. And Tucson High School wanted to play, and it was arranged, but last minute, Tucson officials canceled it, again for racial issues. And the coach of Tucson High School wrote a letter of apology, saying, well, we really like to have you, but authorities would not allow the game. So that's kind of a sad situation. But Zenimura, understood the, situation. His philosophy was, if you build it, it will come. Field of Dreams. You saw the movie with Kevin Costner?
Yeah.
Field of Dreams. Exactly. The opening day there, 3,000 they showed up. When he built the Boston baseball field, it had a sitting capacity of 6,000. So they really showed up. Also had traditional sport, Japanese sumo, wrestling. And you can see that they were very kind of accurate. You can't see it well, but this is a dojo, which is a sumo ring, and it's elevated. And you have a referee here.
Were these people who had been wrestlers before?
No.
So they learned all this after?
Yeah, they work on it. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah. This is a picture of George Yoshida. I met him at behind the WWII conference. He's a musicologist, was an expert on Japanese American music, popular music from the 1920s to 1960s. Music was very important, to build up morale. Here is John Yoshida's band, and here he is. This George played the saxophone. The band name was Music Makers, and they had some very good musicians. Each camp had their own big band. The theme song for the music for the Music Makers was Glenn Miller's Moonlight Saturday. My generation, we like big band music, and you can hear the tune in our heads already, there's the music of, Tommy Dorsey and Artie Shaw and Duke Ellington, yeah. Here's another picture. Here George is again playing the saxophone right here. You can't see it, but this is way in the back. There's this guy here. Actually, he's a 70-year-old boy, Hideo Kawano. He was a musical prodigy, and he did the arrangement, and he played the trumpet. Very good expert on jazz music. This shows the young people, they love it, they love it. They're doing the foxtrot, jitterbug, boogie woogie. Hey, there's a guy in Zoot Suit too, look at him. Those of the other generation. Yeah, so, you know, the young people really loved it. They had traditional Japanese theater. This is kabuki, built by the Japanese Americans, you know. And it's very elaborate. You can't hardly see it, but there's people sitting here in front. And there's some, I can't read those Japanese writing, but I think they're the names of the actors. But it's an elaborate stage here. Kabuki theater. Japanese like festivals, so that they had it, or you know, different festivals, and they would have parade. This is a mass, you know, amassing the American flag. You know, how patriotic can you be? You know, it just shows you how Americanized they were. Girl Scouts of America. They were also Boy Scouts.
In the camp.
In the camp, it's only the camp. If you go there today, this is what you see at Gila River and at Boston. But you can still see, you know, the foundation, the footings of the building. You can see also the ponds. Yeah. Look at these very intricate ones. Because Gila River, they have more than Boston. So very elaborate. You know, I can hardly imagine, you know, it took a lot of work. This is desert, right? But to bring in the water and all that, you know, having this pond. But they love, you know, to build it, you know. This is a memorial built by the inmates at Gila River. This is a memorial for the Gila River veterans. The names are there. 1,100 served in armed forces, and of this number, 23 killed in action. Boston had 1,200 served in armed forces, and of that number, 22 were killed in action. If you go to Boston, this is a memorial. There's some writings at the bottom here, and I'm going to cite a portion of this when I end my presentation. You can go to Boston. It's open to the public. As I say, Gila River, you need permission. There were some dissenters. You had some men that did not want to go in the army. There were draft resistors. Their argument was this: okay, I'm an American citizen. You want me to serve in the U.S. Army, but I'm behind barbed wires. Why are you denying my constitutional rights? And you're asking me to serve the country. So some of them resisted. Well, the administrators labeled them as troublemakers, and they were removed from the relocation camps and sent to detention centers. So initially they were sent to Moab, which is a detention center in Utah, but that closed in a short time. And then they were sent to Loop, L-E-U-P-P. It's near Winslow, Arizona, on the northeastern corner. Loop used to have Indian boarding school, but was abandoned. So then the government took over and then sent these troublemakers over there. Now, the building, as you can see, is nice. It's not like a barracks. It was a nice building. However, conditions there were very harsh. very harsh. And in fact, they had 150 military police watching 80 inmates. Can you imagine that? 150 watching 80? I mean, no, very, very harsh. In fact, it was an embarrassment for WRA. And Dylan said, we need to close that place. So by December 1943, it was closed. And the inmates were then moved to Tule Lake in California, where all the resistors were there, all put together. I show this picture because of this one individual. I like to make it more personal. You hear the figures, and but it doesn't mean much unless you know some of the personalities. This person here is Harry Ueno. Harry Ueno was born and raised in the Big Island of Hawaii, of the Hamakua district. When he was 7 years old, he was sent to Japan as Kibe, okay, for his schooling. He stayed there 10 years and returned back to the United States. Then the family moved to Monson, California. And when the war broke out, they were moved to Manzanar, one of the relocation centers. In Manzanar, he worked in the mess hall. But he was noticing that sugar was disappearing. No, sugar was a really precious commodity those days. It was missing, and then other food items were missing. And then he found out that some of the administration people were stealing it and selling it on the black market. So he reported it to the FBI. Well, when you're a whistleblower, you're not very popular with the authorities, So he was a marked person, okay? He organized the mess hall union, I think there must be something, people who born and raised in Hawaii, it's little, they're not going to take all this for nothing. But one night, Fred Tayama, who was a Nisei, but worked with the Japanese American Citizen League, was beaten up severely by 6 hooded individuals. They don't know who it was, okay? But guess who got picked on? They're jailed. Harry Ueno. Okay. Now, he was also a Kibe. Kibe did not like people from the Niseis that were allied with the Japan American Citizen League, because those people with the Citizen League were pro-administration, pro-American. Kibes tend to be pro-Japanese. So there was in conflict between the two Nisei groups. So that's why Tayama was beaten up, But Ueno was in prison. And then what happened was, all the people started to congregate, and they wanted Ueno to be released from the jail. And then next night the crowd grew even larger, so the MPs got worried, oh my gosh, And then as the crowd grew larger, they started throwing smoke bombs, And then rifle fire rang out. 2 Japanese Americans got killed, 10 were wounded. Okay. And so this is the Manzanar riot of December 6, 1942. Okay. So Harry Ueno was shipped out of Manzanar, and he went to Moab, and then he ended up in Luke. And that's why he's in this picture. So it's very interesting about this particular individual. This is a layout of Catalina prison, labor camp. Actually, the official title was honor camp. But it was a federal prison built in 1939, but during the war, it also housed draft resistors. So the 45 Japanese Americans draft resistors from the other relocation camps were brought here to this camp in the mountain. Already you had about 200 other inmates there. Hopi Indians, for one thing. There were also draft resistors, also conscientious objectors like Jehovah's Witnesses. They were there.
This is not lemon?
This is for not Lemon Camp?
Mount Lemmon, yeah, Mount Port 7. If you go up Mount Port 7, yeah. And he's named after Gardner Hirabayashi, well, I'll show you his picture. But there were 4 barracks, altogether around 50 buildings. Of course, you go today, there's none of those. It was, large enough. The interesting thing about this facility, there was no guards, no barbed wire, no watchtower, and open. Well, of course, where do you go? Nothing much in Tucson. Okay. Yeah, it was, I would call it a work camp, basically. And interviewed one of these Japanese debaters, said, the food was good. It was really good. But he said, don't tell anyone. He said, I don't want to be shipped out of here to the relocation center. No, the food there is bad. I like it here. Yeah. So, the most famous inmate was Gardner Hirabayashi. There's a picture of him as a student. He was a student at the University of Washington when Pearl Harbor attack and the war began. And, a curfew was called, and he said, well, I'm an American citizen. My friends can stay up after 8 o'clock. Why do I have to go home, And so he said, well, I'm just going to go out with my friend. And he was not arrested. Then the exclusion order came, the order that he had to get on the bus, the last bus, to take him to the assembly center, and of course they would be later on go to the relocation center. He said, well, I'm an American citizen. Why should I be confined in a concentration camp? So he said, I'm not going to follow that. Instead, he went to the FBI headquarters and said, I'm not going to obey the curfew or exclusion orders. Of course, got arrested right away, and then put into jail. And when trial occurred at federal district court, he was convicted to 180 days in jail. But his friend says, okay, we're gonna fight this. We're gonna make a case of this. And so they appealed it and went to the Court of Appeals. He lost again. He was found guilty. And the case went up to the Supreme Court. And it was June of 1943, it reached the Supreme Court. And next month, the court gave his verdict, and it was, they upheld his conviction. So by that time, he had already spent, most of his prison term. He only had 3 months left, right? So he said, well, I don't want to go back to the Spokane prison. I don't like that place. Is there any other place? Well, they said, well, there's an opening at the work camp in Tucson, Arizona, but you know what? We don't have any money, so we can't send you there. God said, okay, well, can I find my way down there? He said, yeah, you want to do that? So he hitchhiked. It took him 2 weeks. He hitchhiked to Tucson.
From where?
Yeah, from Seattle, Washington. Yeah. So, when I met Gardner, he was here for the dedication of this place down named after him. Gardner is really, reading all these stories, is it true? He said, yeah, it's true. And there's more to it. He said when he got to Tucson, they won't let him in because they didn't have these papers. Well, wait a minute. I hitchhiked all the way to Tucson, and you're not going to admit me into your prison? then I have to go back to Seattle, and then what? You find the paper, I have to come back again? No. And so they hassle about this, and it was, 100 degrees, right, in Tucson. They said, well, you need to cool off. Why don't you take in a movie? Okay. So Gordon said, okay, I'll go to the movie. He went to the movie, came back, and guess what? Lo and behold, they found the paper. So everybody was happy. He was admitted to prison. It's really a fantastic story. Yeah. Gordon was very personable. He. This is a picture later. He taught at American University in Cairo and Beirut, and then was a professor of sociology at University of Alberta, and that's where he retired. And he was telling a story that when he was at the work camp here in Catalina Mountain, the food, as I said, was good, right? So he wrote a letter to the cook saying, I really like your food. And then one day when he was going to, in line in the mess hall, the cook looked at him and said, are you the guy that wrote me that letter? He said, yeah, I wrote a letter. This is the first time anyone wrote a letter thanking me for my cooking, He said, would you like to work in the mess hall? And Gordon said, oh yeah, we started working on the, building the highway out there, cutting the highway. So he ended up in the 3 months. He only stayed 3 months at working in the mess hall. So, but he became an iconic figure. So this campsite is now called Gordon Hirabayashi Recreation Site, and it's nice. If you go up there, there's a kiosk about his story, about his life story, history of the camp, and a history of the internment experience as well. And there's a trail hike, and it's very, very nice picnic place. So when it gets hot here in a few months, you can go up to Mount Lebanon, Milepost 7, right? So there's a Gordon Hirabayashi Recreation Site, make that left turn into it. Okay. Well, maybe I'll just explain a little bit as why he became such a famous figure, besides protesting. His case, Hirabayashi versus U.S., is one of 3 Cora Novus cases. The other one, 2 others are Koremitsu versus United States and Yasui versus United States. These were all challenges to the government orders. And they were all convicted. Okay, so they all lost their case. But what happened is that they found some document. There was a commission on wartime relocation and internment of civilians, and they were doing research. Okay, and this eventually became part of the redress movement. And one of the staff members, Aiko Yoshinaga, she one day found this document, which is the original report, the final report of the Western Military Command. And the reason that the government gave for the removal of the Japanese Americans from the West Coast was military necessity. But in this document, there's a notation that, really not that necessary to remove them. But they didn't want that, right? So they rewrote it, they took it out. And the ones that were already printed, they destroyed it. They destroyed all. Fortunately, however, there was this one that was not caught, and I found it. And Professor Peter Irons was doing research, and he also found documents that the government suppressed, that agencies and individuals had argued that there was absolutely no necessity for military, to remove these Japanese Americans from the West Coast. No need to do that. But of course, the government didn't want to show that to the court, so they suppressed it. But with the discoveries, they were able to go on with this coram nobis, which is a very, difficult procedure because you're telling the court to reopen a completed case. And the Supreme Court had high bars. You have to have what they call manifest injustice. You really have the preponderance of argument to overturn previous decision. So, but with these documents that they found, they were able to make the argument. And this was pushed, by the way, by the Sansei, the third generation young lawyers, like Gil Nami, people like that. They pushed this, and then went through the district court, and then the U.S. Ninth Court of Appeals made the final decision that they vacated the previous decision and nullified it, and then Yanagihashi was vindicated. This is 44 years after the initial Yanagihashi versus United States that was in 1943. 1987, he was finally vindicated. But Gordon fought it, all these years. If you go up there, you can see some remains, stonework, you can stairway and the walls that the inmates built. I'd like to end with this quotation taken out of the Boston Memorial. And I think it's something that we need to take to heart. May serve as a constant reminder for our past so that Americans in the future will never again, I would underline the word, never again, be denied their constitutional rights. Situations have changed. Conditions of the 1940s are different from the conditions of 2018. But the forces at work are very similar even today. Instead of war, we have terrorism. Instead of hatred for Japanese Americans, we have hatred for Arab Americans. And we still have failure of political leadership. There are some political leaders who still have deep prejudices and fears and are willing to abridge the rights of and freedom of minority groups when faced with adversity, when faced with a crisis, national security things. They react and they're willing to sacrifice the rights of minorities. We see this happening today. So Thomas Jefferson is said to have said this, that eternal vigilance is the price of liberty. So that's a famous saying, right? And what he meant that, liberty is precious, and we have to be watchful, eternal vigilance. You can't let our guard down, so that it can be taken away, our rights and liberties. And the refrain "never again" is used like time and again, usually after a tragedy. Recently the shooting in Florida, the high school, 70 people got killed. The student movement, the name of it is #NeverAgain. So they're using that again, right? So what happens, is that we have to be on the guard. And a person like Milton Eisenhower, wondered, how could a tragedy like this happen in a democratic society that cherishes individual rights and freedom? How could it? Well, it happened, right? It happened. And so this is why I think it's appropriate at this time to, bring up the familiar refrain, never again, never again. I'm open to questions now.